financial crisis. Why is the tide changing again?
Because investors are seeing the prospect of reduced Federal Reserve intervention in markets in the US, which will tend to raise long-term interest rates in the markets, and they want to get some of those better returns. And in the process, they are selling money in emerging financial markets, and that has been driving the currencies down and the interest rates up.
Now, you will have seen this today, Andrew. Mr. Singh, the Prime Minister of India, was talking about the silver lining, something about, well, at least it makes our exports cheaper and therefore India more competitive, I suppose.
That's certainly true, and it is also actually quite striking that in the earlier episodes of the Federal Reserve's extraordinary measures to stimulate the US economy, a lot of emerging countries were getting worried about the effect of putting their exchange rates up. Brazil was one example. The Finance Minister, Guido Mantega, coined the phrase currency wars. He was worried that Brazilian industry was being made less competitive. The fact that those countries are once again being made more competitive, it can justifiably be described as a silver lining, but is still quite a significant cloud that they are looking at.
Andrew Walker, BBC economics correspondent, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, David.
Now let's do the numbers. Brazil has now raised interest rates to stem the fall of its currency, and India's rupee has rebounded slightly from the depths of Wednesday. The FT100 stock index in London is currently down 0.5%. Stock index futures for the U.S. are up right now. Oil is back down from its Wednesday high. Cigarette ads have been banned from TV since 1971, but next month, tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds of Camel fame plans to start airing in Colorado commercials for its new electronic cigarette. Sally Herships reports on the marketing push for smoking billed as an alternative to tobacco.
Have you seen the new commercial for blue e-cigarettes with Jenny McCarthy?
You know, I love being single, but here's what I don't love. A kiss that tastes like an ashtray. Blech.
Sales of e-cigarettes in the U.S. have topped $1 billion this year. It's only a fraction of the cigarette market, but sales are growing fast. So far, e-cigs have been dominated by smaller companies. Tom Malarkey is an equity analyst with Morningstar.
I think coast to coast, you'll probably see blue e-cig commercials, maybe a little bit of Enjoy.
Big tobacco has been cautious. Malarkey says e-cig ads target smokers, so companies don't want to undermine traditional cigarettes, which are much more profitable. But R.J. Reynolds has a new ad for its e-cigarette, Views.
If you watch it, it takes you, the majority of the ad itself to actually work out what the product is.
Shane McGill is a tobacco analyst with Euromonitor International. He says cigarette sellers are being careful not to attract regulators' attention. I'm Sally Herships for Marketplace.
It's been the summer of surveillance, revelations of pervasive government tracking in the name of national security. One industry that raised early warnings about the potential for abuse of tracking technology is actually Hollywood. Marketplace's Stacey Vanek Smith reports.
Computer analyst Angela Bennett was just doing her job.
In the 1995 Sandra Bullock movie The Net, an evil hacker attacks companies through their websites. When Bullock learns too much, the hacker steals her identity.
They just screwed with my information and my fingerprints.
Hacking, tracking, identity theft. Hollywood called it all nearly 20 years ago. And decades before that, it predicted the quintessential tracking device we all carry, says Jason Squire, a film professor at USC.
Star Trek, with its communicator, was much like today's cell phone.
The government isn't the only one tracking our cell phones. Retailers are starting to use our phones to send location-based offers.
Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted tank tops work out for you?
Steven Spielberg's 2002 film Minority Report showed us the next level of ad tracking. As Tom Cruise walks through the mall, cameras scan his eyes and offer up personalized ad holograms. Will Regal is a data marketing consultant.
That specific example is 100% feasible today.
Regal says IBM is developing that technology now. Oh, and that huge interactive map Tom Cruise tracks crime on? Unveiled last year here in New York by Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
A network of cameras, many provided by private businesses, that are programmed to sound an alarm if they spot anything suspicious.
The Domain Awareness System, co-developed with Microsoft. Even cutting-edge technology is old news in Tinseltown, says USC's Jason Squire. Remember Dick Tracy?
Dick Tracy is known for his watch phone.
Calling Dick Tracy. Calling Dick Tracy.
Isn't that the rumor? Apple is working on that kind of futuristic watch.
The iWatch, a wrist phone that will reportedly monitor your pulse, your blood pressure, and your location. In New York, I'm Stacey Vanek Smith for Marketplace.
And for 2 hours yesterday, the New York subway B and Q lines were stopped in Brooklyn as transit employees searched for 2 kittens that got down near the third rail. Kittens are now safe. Now, you may be prompted to do some kind of cost-benefit analysis about kittens versus lost productivity of stranded train riders. But before you do, consider the photo the New York Post took of one of the little guys peering out with his fluffy face and green eyes, his little nose obscured by the track. Where does that fit into your ruthless spreadsheet? In New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
This one is unflippin' believable.
That's what she said.
U.S. seeks support on Syria.
It is the goal that it be an international collaboration.
The NFL settles with ex-players.
Commissioner Goodell felt that it was time to do the right thing.
New Tylenol label.
This new warning is going to be big and bold, and it'll catch your attention.
Good morning. I'm Steve Kathan with the CBS World News Roundup. Who's in? Who's out? The United States, trying to build a coalition, will not have its closest ally if it launches a military strike on Syria for allegedly using chemical weapons. Britain will be on the sidelines after Parliament delivered a defeat to Prime Minister Cameron.
It is clear to me that the British Parliament, reflecting the views of the British people, does not want to see British military action. I get that, and the government will act accordingly.
France is behind military action. Russia would veto any UN moves. White House correspondent Peter Mayer joins us. Peter, where does this leave the Obama administration?
Well, Steve, this morning the White House signals President Obama is ready to go it alone. He sees core national interests and the need to hold Syria accountable. Faced with a coalition of allies unwilling to join a military strike, Defense Secretary Hagel indicates the administration will settle for rhetorical support.
You're seeing a number of countries say publicly, state their position on the use of chemical weapons.
Now, following up on a 90-minute briefing for members of Congress last night, the White House will soon make its case to the public by releasing an unclassified report on Syria.
Well, CBS's Elizabeth Palmer reporting from Damascus says UN inspectors are still at work in Syria gathering evidence.
The Secretary General has said there will be a preliminary report soon, but a really specific one that examines any traces of chemicals they've found for markers that might even tell us who made them. That could take days or even weeks.
Here at home, the NFL heads into its regular season with a deal on a lawsuit that threatened to cost the league and its owners billions. The tentative agreement would pay thousands of former players who said the league ignored the dangers of head injuries $765 million. Eleanor Perfetto's husband, Ralph Wenzel, died of dementia last year. He was an offensive lineman in the 1960s and early 70s.
It's very difficult to watch your husband over a probably 15 to 20-year period of time very, very slowly slip away.
Hall of Famer Tony Dorsett, one of the plaintiffs in the suit, says there's a dire need to help many former players. A month of accusations, litigation, and negotiations comes to an end today in San Diego. Here's CBS's Steve Futterman.
1 week after he announced his resignation,
I again, as I have in the past, sincerely apologize to all of you.
Bob Filner's resignation takes effect. Filner officially leaves office later today, less than a year after being elected. 19 women have now accused him of improper behavior. Filner has steadfastly maintained that he's never sexually harassed anyone. 2 of his accusers have filed lawsuits.
The federal government's made it clear it won't fight legalized marijuana in 2 states where it's legal, providing they follow some strict guidelines.
What the feds are saying here is that they are going to give states like Colorado and Washington an opportunity to come up with a regulatory regime to legalize and tax pot in a safe way, and that if those states succeed, there will be no federal intervention.
CBS News legal analyst Andrew Cohen, other states are considering putting marijuana on the ballot. A vote in Alaska could come as soon as next year. Now to the Florida Panhandle, where digging begins today in a small town on the grounds of an old reform school for boys. CBS's Peter King says experts will try to unravel mysteries in unmarked graves.
This is a big weekend for the families of dozens of boys who died under mysterious circumstances at the Dozier School for Boys during the early to middle part of last century.
Some of them will be
on site with us this weekend.
After nearly 2 years, University of South Florida anthropologist Erin Kimmerly finally has gotten the okay for her team to start digging for remains that they know are buried there in unmarked graves.
We're going to begin in those areas where we've already done test trenches. We have information, photographs and our own notes from that earlier work.
Kimmerly says her team will have a year to exhume and identify remains and return them to families for proper burial and hopefully closure. Peter King, CBS News, Orlando.
The Washington Post has obtained what's known as the Black Budget from NSA leaker Edward Snowden. It's a 178-page dollars and cents summary of what the U.S. spends on intelligence and where the money goes. The tab, $52.6 billion. CBS News senior correspondent John Miller.
It was full of tantalizing facts, but I think if you're going to pull out the special moments, one, there's the irony, which is that the NSA had a budget justification in there to look at 4,000 intelligence officers who they felt might be the insider threat. In other words, a potential security risk who might, leak a document like Edward Snowden.
The government spends billions every year on drones and drone research. In the final part of our week-long series on drones, CBS's Barry Bagnato looks at the challenges they pose to aviation regulators.
Any day now, ConocoPhillips plans to launch unmanned aircraft off the Alaska coast to study ice flows and whale movements for oil exploration, the first approved commercial use.
Unmanned aircraft, much more quiet, much smaller, don't annoy the whales.
Jim Williams, the FAA's point man for developing rules to integrate drones into U.S. airspace by 2015.
We're not going to completely turn over the rules and throw them all out and start over again. We've got to work from the rule book we have.
300-17, report of a drone aircraft.
In March, an Alitalia jet approaching New York's JFK airport reported one within 200 feet.
Nobody should be allowed to fly without a signaling device that says, I'm here.
Former National Transportation Safety Board member Dick Healing says the FAA faces challenges avoiding collisions.
Even the smallest unmanned aircraft, if it falls and strikes a person in the right place, can cause an injury or fatalities.
The Airline Pilots Association wants drone operators to be held to the same training, qualification, and monitoring standards as crews in cockpits. Barry Bagnato, CBS News, Washington.
Most times, people don't think twice before popping a couple of Tylenol. Soon, a new warning will be on the cap of bottles telling us to read the label. CBS's Dr. Holly Phillips.
This warning is really about making explicitly clear that Tylenol products contain acetaminophen. Now, that is a pain reliever that is linked with liver failure. This warning is already on the bottle, but in those teeny tiny letters.
Actress Valerie Harper's doctor indicates her cancer is nearly in remission. In March, she said doctors had given her as little as 3 months to live. Used to be a quarter would be under the pillow the morning after a child lost a tooth. CBS's Jim Chenevey has a look at the Tooth Fairy's going rate.
According to a survey released by payment processor Visa, kids now get an average of $3.70 per lost tooth. That's a 23% increase from a year ago and a 42% jump from 2011. Experts point to the improving economy and common sense. Ever try to find something to buy for a quarter these days?
On TV, a milestone. Noted Roundup listener David Letterman marked 20 years on the CBS Late Show last night with a guest he had on his first night, actor Bill Murray.
Honestly, I've said this before, but you are the busiest man in show business.
No, Dave, you are.
Well, I forgot it's my night. I know.
How many more years of Dave? Hard to say. He's 66 and signed through the end of next year. The World News Roundup is produced by Paul Ferry. I'm Steve Kathan, CBS News.
Those who are involved in martial arts before they start are actually inhaling some demon spirit, and some of them do that, by the way.
Don't you wish your boyfriend was hot like I am?
I'd like to drop out of high school and get a meaningless job that makes me feel bad about myself.
I'd like to fall victim to the old boys network.
I don't want anybody to notice me.
I just want to fly under the radar.
I want to splatter against the glass ceiling.
I don't have an opinion.
I want to be a straight C student.
I'm going to be a biomedical engineer.
I want to succumb to peer pressure all of my life. I'm going to be a best-selling author and win the National Book Award.
I'm going to be a marine biologist.
Wait, I take mine back. I'm going to be a biomedical engineer.
I think I'll be the president. I'm going to be Secretary of State.
World-class chef, right here.
Race car driver. Artist. Paleontologist.
Film director.
Surgeon. Teacher. Scientist. Olympian. I'm going to be the boss.
welcome back to